I think I can, I will. Welcome you back. The Prophet Alan Hughes from the Flat Earth Nation channel, along with Brother Tommy, invited me on the show. Thought I'd share a little clip and then dive in on my own experiences growing up in Jeff City. Again, guys, I just want to thank you for coming in.
Okay.
Good to meet you, Tommy. And
Sure, nice to meet you.
yeah, I hope we can continue just having this real good breakthrough in church and you bringing in some other fellas possibly. But I just wanted to leave with this. There's one, I just wanted to share a quick testimony. I was raised Jesuit Catholic. My great-grandmother was on the orphan train.
Wow.
I have a lot of stories from Jefferson City, Missouri, where I grew up, including the state penitentiary, this castle-like building that was just built out of nowhere in the wilderness of Jefferson City, housed 15 prisoners, and their justification was, we just have to build this big prison. You know, it has to be this.
Where was it again?
Jefferson City, Missouri.
I'll check it out.
It's crazy.
Welcome, everybody, to Flat Earth Nation. It is a Flat Earth Nation. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. The other day, I told somebody on a podcast or a stream that I'd look into the Missouri State Prison because that's what he grew up around. It's a small town in Jefferson, Missouri. And it sounded intriguing, and I'm glad I did look into it. Look at this prison complex, and supposedly this building here was built in 1836, and then the rest of it was built in 1837. So the Missouri State Penitentiary was a prison in Jefferson City, and that operated in 1836 to 2004. Before it closed, it was just right there by the Mississippi River. The Missouri State Penitentiary was constructed in the early 1830s to serve the newly admitted state of Missouri. And according to iTHINKiCANiWILL, the guy who came on the stream, that originally they had 12 prisoners, and because it was a frontier town at the time, but they wanted to build it to try to keep their position as the county seat. So not much of a Wikipedia page, but here's some notable inmates. I notice here that Pretty Boy Floyd and Sonny Liston, a boxer who's famous for throwing a fight against Muhammad Ali and some other things. But ladies and gentlemen, it's a mud flood. It is a mud flood deal. The you can see there's some turrets from a castle there. We're going to get a look at those. Let's see. Here is the notice. This Missouri State Penitentiary kind of looks like they added that to some of this other, it doesn't fit quite in with my perspective of what it would look like. Here's the Great Hall, and I've got another picture that shows you how far this is, but all you got to do is just add a little walkways to it, put in some cells, and you got a prison. But 1836, that high of a ceiling, different paint job and a different interior decorator, and you might have yourself an old cathedral or castle or something like that. Here's the outside of it. Sure, it did have a clock. I want to look, at these parts here because I'm going to be showing you a little bit later what a regular castle, what these slits are for. They were for your archers to shoot and then duck out of the way. Shoot and duck out of the way. Just knock off some of the top where they would have those other parts where you shoot and then jump behind the wall there. But look, we've seen these type of alcoves before. And can you agree with me that this little plaque here looks like it was just added a little bit later? There's one of the original walls over there. It just seems like you can pick, almost anything from the early 1800s. So here's your castle slits in the wall. These are all from castles. Arrow slit windows for your medieval, the medieval times when nothing really advanced except the art of masonry, where you could, build castles. So this is from another portion of the of what a castle would look like. Has windows and slits. This is your Missouri castle. I remember I told you they just knocked off the top portions of them. Well, that looks like one of these type of situations, doesn't it? Got the arrow slits on the outside so they could shoot there. Still have the castle tops on it, looking too much like a castle, so they had to say, let's get rid of that. And here's what I find, interesting. This is from the Missouri Digital Heritage. This is the schoolhouse in 1836. Wood frame building. Come on, people. Well, there's the prison. And these are the, it just doesn't add up, people. There was this other, stick with me here now. One of the things they had was a, they showed a picture of the boys' bathroom. It was an outhouse. It was an outhouse. I'm not going to spend too much time on this video. We just know that everything they say is a lie. So here's the, this is the entrance to it. Back, it looks like they had cars. That looks like even before a Model T. But boy, in 1836, they made them to last. And they made them to look like a castle if we would believe their hoax history. It just doesn't add up. And it's everywhere across the United States. And this is, this is one of their prison cells. And I'm telling you, I can imagine the Apostle Peter, one of the times he was thrown in prison, being in a cell just like this, in an old castle somewhere. Or the Apostle Paul. It just, put a steel door on the outside and seal them in. Okay, but we've still got some other weird things to go on. There's a close-up of that sign. Does seem out of place to me compared to the other stonework. And, I don't know who they say this guy is, but I imagine they have a whole made-up history about them. You got little gargoyles on the front there. One of them got knocked off, but let's put a little flourish on it because it's going to be a prison for 12 prisoners. Okay, let's do that. Now let's get into the prison tours. You can now, it's closed down. Just come and tour it. There's your cell. Just put some metal work up around it and disguise the fact that this used to be what they would call the Great Hall. how long it was. Yeah, it's just not adding up, right? 1836. Well, there, we got to get the regular castle towers off because they're not going to be shooting arrows and hiding. They're going to be machine gunning people. Now, here's the Missouri State Penitentiary cells. Uh-oh. Discovery of the Centennial cells. Well, sure enough, you can see somebody, here's the concrete or something that was above it, rounded off, and then, they wanted to dig down, and they found old cells. Let's see what they said. In 1985, officials from the Missouri State Prison, the Department of Corrections, and the Division of Adult Institutions unearthed an old cell block that predated the Civil War. The discovery happened after a court order was issued to put in a recreation yard for offenders that were on death row. So they had to, oops, it's just like somebody's like, I was digging down to make a basement and I found a Roman bath all over the world. So when the construction between housings unit 2 and 3 began, the crew started to digging. They realized they'd hit something solid. You know how you realize you hit something solid? You can't dig anymore. This finding led to an exploration of 6 cells built around 1848. Well, it doesn't look like the other cells that were built in 1836. Old school underneath the other ones. Mud flood much, people? Yeah, that's what you're going to find everywhere. These things here, I wouldn't be surprised, if they had pictures of catacombs on it and things like that. But in the Missouri, they say, show me. So they went there and they said, sure enough, yep, 1848, made to look older and much more unused and unknown. They didn't know it was there. You don't dig when you know something's there. So what do we got here? That was the beginning of this whole situation. And then their tours. Well, what more can I say? I could go through and dig up some more pictures and things like that. But ladies and gentlemen, you're always going to find it's a mud flood world. Just do a little digging. And this is your 1836. And just like anywhere else in the world, I invite you to go digging because you just might find that, oh my goodness, there's something underground. What's happening here? No. Ladies and gentlemen, history is a hoax. They're still lying to us. At least we've got 1 month of winter underneath our belt right now. It won't be long till spring is here. And Lord willing, I can get back out and do some more digging around with rocks and mounds and everything else. It's a flat earth nation. Don't let them tell you anything else because they're probably lying to you. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.
If you haven't already checked out the channel, Flat Earth Nation, you need to. I've been following it for years, opened my eyes to the post-apocalyptic world that we live in, controlled by the Jesuits. Growing up in Jeff City, I often thought this prison to be an oddity. So many things surround this, so much darkness. We called it the city, the prison city. And all you could see from the streets on the outer realm was the wall, really. And it was high itself, probably over 12, 13, maybe 15 feet high. And then over the wall, it would go down deep, past the street line, another 15, 20 feet beyond that. This place was ridiculous. Quick story, I was a kind of a wild kid growing up, got into some trouble as an adolescent, and consequently had to do a tour of this prison while it was still active. And they called it the Scared Straight program. Yeah, it worked. And this place was the darkest dungeon place you could ever imagine. And people were in it. I mean, souls were in it. Alan briefly mentioned, a guy who is this guy that was plastered on, kind of retrofitted at the beginning. Well, he was the governor back in the day, Dockery. This guy has an interesting story because he was a physician, and he lost all of his children, and then, later became an advocate for children. Kind of one of those deals, donating money and building parks and et cetera, anything to be near the children, because, he lost all of his children. He's a physician. Very strange. Jesuit connections here, and we're going to probably dive deeper. We'll most likely dive deeper here. I plan to do a follow-up video on another Jesuit character, one of the earlier settlers in Jeff City. And this fits this narrative, when the devil was loosed and he went out and deceived the nations. This is probably going to be right around the time of the Jesuits, and then from that point, they were the first on the scenes, right? Building churches and schools, setting up academia, and doing this all in step with the local governments. And that's really important. And remember, anywhere where they were assigned, they went, and wherever they deemed, this is the spot, where here's the bag of gold and the financing to get it done. So they say, or whatever needs to be retrofitted, and another narrative, paint over this and retrofit that, and here's what we're going to say, and these were the guys that would get it done. And again, all roads are going to lead back to Rome on this one, guys. So going back to this governor, the guy that loves the children and the governor of the state and all of this, we're going to put his picture, we're going to mount his head on, we're going to even have a Dockery Day named after this guy. So he was obviously influential. And there were others, and they were Jesuits, and I can show you tombs. And, the graveyard doesn't lie either. A lot of these guys, as they say, their symbolism will be their downfall. So I love how Alan shows you in the architecture that, this was a cover-up. These are cover-up stories. You got to let your mind go there if you have ears to hear. So just kind of, again, going around and exploring some of these pictures and craziness with this and surrounding this penitentiary, this prison city. I mean, we're talking about gas chambers, stories of the place being haunted, escapees. Growing up, there was always, it seems like the news was somebody had escaped or planned an escape. There were other prisons in town by that time, but this was like high maximum security prison. Really dangerous type of a place.
Staying up